I don't think I've ever heard an example of a military intervention that you support. And I'm curious, in your anti-war philosophy,
Revolutionary War. I support that one.
I know that you're okay with, if for some reason Mexico invaded us, you'd be okay with us pushing them out. You're not.
Sure.
Everyone supports a purely defensive war.
Yes, absolutely.
So is that the limit of the wars that you support, or is there any war in the past 100 years that America has fought that was not, or let me just say, any military intervention that was not purely defensive that you support?
No, I mean, I think in American history, right, the Revolution and the War of 1812 were purely defensive wars. And that's, leaving aside any of the stuff about how conspiratorial the founding fathers were about what the British were about to do. None of that really matters to me. They sent an invading army, and I think people have a right to declare their independence. So that's a legitimate war. In terms of a war that I could support, I can't think of an example of one. I think that there's, like, if you're, like, just talking in theory here, right? I do think that if you're attacked and if you have reason to believe that you can't stop attacks from continuing to come, and that the only way to save your people is to, God forbid, kill some innocent people on the other side, I could see there being like a horrible consequentialist argument for it. But I don't, I don't support any of the wars that America's been in my lifetime, for sure.
Okay, so I can give you two examples of wars I definitely support. One is Korea. If we hadn't intervened in Korea, there would be no South Korea. It would be, the whole peninsula would be ruled by the Kim family, and every humanitarian consequence that's come as a result of that in the past 70 years, including all the famines and the repression and the purges. And so.
Sounds like a Korean problem to me.
To me, it's easy to make a consequentialist argument that our intervention in Korea, though it did increase deaths from what would have resulted, was in the long run a good choice. And then I can also easily support the military intervention in Liberia in 2003, where this country has been at civil war, hundreds of thousands of deaths, people slaughtering each other left and right for 12 years. Clinton does nothing. George Bush shows up, sends 2,000 Marines. Within a week, the Civil War is done, and the country's been at peace for 20 years, and they fly American flags there. And these seem to me both examples where your philosophy of war would not allow us to go do things like that, whereas mine would.
Yeah, so I guess...
Good, I don't want to do your two.
Like, the Liberia one certainly did work out fairly well. Korea, I don't... honestly...
You support Liberia?
No, I said it worked out fairly well.
But you don't support it even though it worked out well.
This is the point that I'm getting to, right? Is that... So, no, I wouldn't have supported the policy, but it did work out a lot better than the other catastrophes. But if you want to sit here and say that, like, my philosophy wouldn't allow Liberia to have happened, like, okay, fair enough. But your philosophy won't prevent Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, Libya, Somalia, and Yemen. And I'll take that trade.
I wouldn't say my philosophy is pro-Iraq. I wasn't pro the Iraq War.
No, it's not a matter, but you're saying my philosophy of not getting into these entanglements will not allow us to have the success of Liberia.
That's correct, right?
So then, right, yes, sure. But then the flip side of that is that then you also have to credit that my philosophy would not allow the catastrophes that I just rattled off.
So it's a trade-off.
Forget your point.
Your philosophy is, as every philosophy.
He's not understanding. His philosophy does allow for those type of things to happen, right? What are they going to do? Just call Coleman Hughes every time they get an event going on and ask him what his stance is on it? You either allow them or you don't allow them, and Dave's is better because they don't allow them.
Everything is trade-offs. Yeah, everything in life is trade-offs, sure. But like, yes,
but that's a deep insight. That's a deep insight. I mean, that's not something to gloss over. It's a trade-off. No. It's a trade-off in human lives on both sides.
100%. But well, yes, it's a trade-off. I suppose yes, it can be. Everything is a trade-off, but also
But in Dave's way, American lives stay alive, and people in another land they have to deal with what they have to deal with. But Americans, which is what we're worried about, they stay alive, and that's what pro-America means.
The thing is that giving the government power to do something is not, something that you can then always have control over, than how it's going to be used. And so, yes, in a sense, it is a trade-off, like everything in life is trade-offs. But I think the trade-off is way on my side. And if you're saying that, like, of the last, 19 military interventions, we got 2 who didn't turn out to be complete catastrophes. That's like, oh yeah, I would still rather err on the side of the trade-off that didn't allow for all of the catastrophes to happen.
I would say there are more than 2. You could probably add the NATO bombing in the 1990s, and you could probably add getting Saddam out of Kuwait.
Which NATO bombing in the 1990s? Serbia, you're talking about?
Both 95 and 99.
Oh, no, all right. I mean, those
are more. I'll grant you, those are more arguable cases. Those aren't shut and dry like Liberia.
No, I mean, I think honestly,
but Liberia is not shut and dry either. It's still not in our best interest to go help any fucking body else. How is it in our best interest to prevent shit in Liberia?
I know a lot more. I know more about
experts would argue that we halted a genocide in progress. And that's not
no
nothing.
expert. No.
Oh, so we halt genocides now while we watch what happened in Gaza, right? That's what we do. We go take care of shit when it happens in these other places, but whenever it's one of our friends, we just let them do whatever the fuck they want to do. And that's the problem. We're at the will of our elected officials who are bought and paid for from foreign countries, right? Look, if you want to do humanitarian shit, we have a lot of billionaires here. Y'all could finance your own little army and go do whatever you need to do in that country. But that shouldn't fall on the heads of us working guys who got to pay bills. That shouldn't be from our tax money. If you want to go do that, go do it.
No expert has any evidence that we halted a genocide in progress.
Expert.
This is what they said. This is what they said leading into the war, right? Bill Clinton said that like 100,000 people or something like that had already been killed, and the FBI went over there and investigated afterward, and they just didn't find anything to back up those claims. And Milosevic had absolutely committed war crimes, and he had killed some soldiers and he had done some bad things, and there were people who got massacred. But even he never even got convicted of the genocide charge in the International Criminal Court. He got convicted of war crimes and I think some other lesser charge. But no, I think that thing was sold on lies, just like all the other wars of my lifetime have been.
Okay. So I want to talk to you a little bit more about your anti-war philosophy, because I've heard, one of the arguments on the other side of you is that the world is basically a competition of great powers, or if not great powers, then regional powers. And if America were to adopt your favorite stance of isolationism and purely defensive wars, we're not fighting a war until there's a bomb dropped, on American soil, and then we're going to fight a purely defensive war to eliminate the threat, and that's it. What would happen is all of the other powers in the world, from Russia to China to Iran, would simply fill in the void, right? And so you have examples like, we pull our military bases out of the Philippines, and it's not 2 years before China has created an artificial island and plopped a military base.
This is the stupidest thing I've ever heard, and it's purely an assertion here. Why in the fuck would China or Russia want to go put bases around the Middle East just to help Israel? They're not even allies with Israel. They're not to our level, not even close. So why would they have an interest in protecting Israel? What purpose would Russia have to protect Israel? Please tell me, Coleman, since you made the assertion. Jesus.
Right off the coast of the Philippines. And then there's the additional point, which I want to get your response to, which is that we feel many critiques of our military-industrial complex. The fact that we have this revolving door where you can predict with coin flip accuracy that the current Secretary of Defense is going to end up at a weapons company in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
And there's a revolving door. And in the aggregate, it wouldn't require a genius in human psychology to think that perhaps this pushes the whole system to be a little more war-happy than it otherwise would. And I think I would probably disagree with you. I think I would certainly disagree with you about the power of that effect. But what would you say to the critique that Russia...
Even though we saw it in effect, they didn't get to this because this is 8 months ago, but we saw it. Trump had success whenever he went into Venezuela, figured, I'll go get Iran too. And now, when he thought that was going to be quick, he was even talking about hitting Cuba on the way home. So yes, Dave is correct. fighting wars like this does inspire you to fight more wars. Like that's what we literally saw happen on our TVs every night.
And China
Jesus.
also have their own military industrial complexes. It's not even a revolving door in the case of Russia because they're in the same room. It's like the 49% owner of Kalashnikov became the deputy secretary of defense in 2018 in Russia. And he didn't even have to get rid of his shares in Kalashnikov, right?
Yeah.
So they're not revolving in and out. They're just in the same room. They're the same people. In China, it all works through bribery because everything is state-owned, but they've had massive bribery scandals in the past 10 years where the weapons companies are bribing the people that decide whether to get their to secure their contracts to give them higher prices, who are bribing the people above them to make decisions.
I'm not even understanding what his point is here. Yeah, shit's fucked up all around the world. So do we got to take it over? Is that the solution here? Everywhere where shit's fucked up? You know, in Papua New Guinea, some tribes, you got to suck a guy's dick to be a man. Like that's their ritual to become a man. That's how they achieve manhood in that culture. But we're not bombing them. So should we just have a council where we decide all the injustices in the world? We have to go fucking, what are we, the super friends? Jesus.
That were down to the benefit of ultimately financial motives. So if America pulls back from the world, what is to stop the military industrial complexes of all the other countries in the world from simply filling the space now that they're undeterred?
Why would they want to? What other world power is BFFs with Israel? Like, they act like we don't do most of this shit for Israel. That's the part that's driving me nuts. How are you trying to pretend like this serves America's interests? Our gas goes up, our inflation goes up. We got dead soldiers now. In what way does it benefit us to go stop a revolution in Yemen? What the fuck does that have? How does that benefit me going to work every day? How does that help?
Sure. Well, I mean, I think, yes, I've certainly heard this argument before. I would kind of point out that it does seem to me that the more pro-war position almost always seems to rely on like an unfalsifiable counterfactual of how things would be way worse if we didn't do this. And whereas the anti-war position tends to more rely on the actual catastrophes that have happened. And so like, just to be clear, which I'll defend my philosophical views or whatever, but the idea of like, oh, the problem with the non-interventionist libertarians is that if we completely withdrew from the world, then China comes and totally takes over the world in our absence. It's like, okay, but like, just first, I will say, just on a practical level, like, without embracing pure Ron Paulianism or something, which is probably not going to happen tomorrow, like our criminal government in DC could have just not lied through their teeth to sell the war in Iraq. And like that would have just been a lot better. 1 million people would still be alive and trillions of dollars wouldn't have been wasted and tens of thousands of our bravest young boys wouldn't have committed suicide in the aftermath of it. And so like, we didn't need to fight all of these disastrous wars, even if you think on top of that, you can't completely pull back from the world. But I don't know. I fundamentally reject the idea that there will be one power who takes over the world. You know, part of
It wouldn't
why
have to be one. Each regional power fills the vacuum of its own area that we leave.
Yeah,
I mean, and
currently,
it's not a hypothetical based on nothing. It's based on, can you point to a single time period in the past 5,000 years of human civilization where the regional powers have not expanded using their militaries to the best of their ability, given the accounting for the blowback they will get? Can you point to any time? So it's not.
No, I'm not. Yeah, okay, but I'm not suggesting that like that no regional powers would.
America, since we bought Hawaii, what have we done? How have we expanded? Like, how have we taken on more land? And we don't have the Greater America Project. We're not trying to make America bigger. I think we would do a lot better if we did get Greenland in a purchase agreement, like some kind of a deal with Denmark. I think that would be good for us, but we haven't done it. We haven't expanded. We're the same size we were whenever I was born.
Will exert influence over their realm of their sphere of influence. Like, of course not. But I'm also seeing right now, Vladimir Putin is limping through his third year in a war with Ukraine. I don't see him as being a threat to dominate Europe anytime soon. The rest of Europe is all against him and much wealthier and much stronger than him. China is
But
more
you
of a power.
implicitly, even in that argument, you concede implicitly that if they were less strong, for instance, if they didn't have all the backing of the United States, that he could expand, and that would be the natural tendency throughout all of human history.
I'm not conceding that that's necessarily the natural tendency, but sure, if Ukraine was weaker, he would be able to have defeated the country quicker. I'll certainly grant that.
It's not the natural tendency. So you don't agree with the Mearsheimer guys that believe great powers have a default tendency to expand up to the limit of the resistance against them?
Well, listen, certainly I think every organization has a desire to expand. I mean, this is true in general of businesses, of countries. So they're always trying to expand, not necessarily territorially. And I do think that a country like China, who is kind of known for playing the long game, even in their kind of crazy centrally controlled method. No, I don't think that they're watching America going bankrupt, fighting all of these wars and saying, oh, we got to get in on all that action. I think that, so essentially, yeah, I would probably agree with much of what John Mearsheimer says in the sense that it is the way of the world that great powers will have their realm of influence. I do think that's true. But looking at the world right now, I mean, it's just, I find this to be kind of a silly thing.
That doesn't answer the question why America needs to have that power in fucking the Middle East. Like, I don't even understand what he's saying.
Where we become the world empire, we bully the entire world, and then we sit there being worried that someone else is going to start doing this. Whereas China has adversaries all around it. China has to contend with Japan and South Korea. It's not so obvious that they just take over the world. And no, I just essentially no. I'm a George Washingtonian on this. I think that America, we struggle enough with just doing liberty right here. That should be our focus. And no, I don't think, like, I think you can trade with the world and be friends with the world. And yes, it will suck to be a little country next to a bigger, much stronger country. That's already true. That's true with America. We're more guilty of making it suck for little countries than any of them are. So I don't find any of this stuff compelling.
Okay, let's